Dan, thank you very much for your time. What an absolute riot yesterday was. Boris Johnson never formally saying he was in, but very formally saying, I'm now out.
Yeah, absolutely. At no point had Boris Johnson officially said, I'm in this contest. But we all knew he was. You don't cancel your holiday in the Caribbean and fly back to the UK if you're not intending to actually stand. He spent 48 hours holding conversations with backbenchers. We know there was this summit with Rishi Sunak on Saturday night to try and come up with some sort of deal between them. And it became quite clear yesterday that it just wasn't going to happen for him. He claims he has enough nominations that he could stand if he wanted to. But the truth is, when you look at how many MPs were publicly backing him, I'm just not sure the numbers were actually there.
Yeah, that's the key, isn't it? 102, he said, didn't he? But it's looking pretty unlikely now. Because presumably there is an argument to say, isn't there, that if he'd hit the 100 and then refused to back down, to give way, and it went to a vote of Tory membership, he'd probably win.
Yeah, absolutely. Polling shows that when you're looking at the country as a whole, Rishi Sunak seems to be the most popular candidate in this election. But when you're looking at Conservative members, who, of course, are the ones who would get the decision, Boris Johnson looks like he would beat Rishi Sunak or Penny Mordaunt. So if he had those numbers, if he wanted to come back, he could do. And in fact, he even mentioned that in his statement. He said, I could be in number 10 on Friday if I ran. He says that if he went to the members' vote, he could be there. So for him to pull out, I think, is kind of probably proof that he wasn't quite there with the MPs.
What's his relationship like with Rishi Sunak right now? Because it has certainly been terse at times. It's not going to be the end of Boris Johnson, is it?
No, I think we'll see probably Boris Johnson go back to slipping away and not doing so much quite in the public eye in the UK. I think we'll see a bit more of tours in the US for now, doing some after-dinner speeches. It's fair to say Rishi Sunak and Boris Johnson don't see eye to eye on a lot of things. You've obviously got the way that Boris Johnson's time in office came to an end, which many, including Boris Johnson, blame Rishi Sunak for, but also real differences over economic policy. That is actually one of the reasons Rishi Sunak said that he resigned in the first place. It wasn't just scandals or Partygate. It was also because of fundamental differences over how to run the economy. So a Rishi Sunak premiership, the idea that Boris Johnson could get behind it and say, I wholeheartedly support this, it's hard to see.
This is where the Tories are their own worst enemy, isn't it? Because, Rishi Sunak, whether you like him or not, is seen as a pretty safe pair of hands when it comes to fiscal policy at the moment. It's sort of been proved right, hasn't he? And yet, he's not necessarily a unity candidate. And if the party doesn't unite, they're still in a whole world of trouble, aren't they?
Yeah, Rishi Sunak, you're right. A lot of the things we've seen over the last month, he was saying in the summer, if you elect Liz Truss, we will have problems. And he can now say, look, I warned you. This is why you should have gone with me the first time round. But that doesn't mean that his policies are popular. I think we need to wait and see actually what his economic plan now is, because despite having decided to run again, he's not actually set out what his economic plan is this time round. And the economy has changed over the last 6-7 weeks. He was still talking about national insurance and why that needed to be raised in the summer. We now know that Liz Truss has reversed that. What would a Prime Minister Rishi Sunak do? Would he reverse that again? Can we have a U-turn on a U-turn? Which, given the fact that they promised in the 2019 manifesto they'd never rise in the first place, would be really quite something.
There's also going to be huge clamour, not just from the opposition, but from many members of the public who say, this will be our third Prime Minister, we didn't elect this person, we need a general election. How's Rishi Sunak going to navigate that?
I think the last thing Rishi Sunak is going to want to do is bow to that pressure, because if you look at the polling, it looks devastating for the Conservatives right now. He will hope to be able to steady the ship and go to the polls at a later date when maybe the support is firmed up a bit. I think the argument that he will be making if he becomes the Prime Minister, let's be clear, that contest could still go ahead and it could be Penny Mordaunt. There is an outside chance. If it is Rishi Sunak, I think he'll be saying, look at the economic circumstances. Now's the last time we need to go for an election. We need to calm the markets and put ourselves back onto sound financial footing.
What about Jeremy Hunt in all of this? The new Chancellor, brought forward some of the mid-term fiscal measures. Now he's calling the 31st a proper budget. How much of that is going to stand? Surely he's got to be secure in his job, otherwise that is going to freak out the markets.
Now, all the candidates are saying that they're not promising any jobs, but yesterday, significantly, Jeremy Hunt came out saying that he was supporting Rishi Sunak. I'm sure you can expect the two of them have been speaking behind closed doors, and I imagine there's been a wink-wink, nudge-nudge Jeremy, you're safe in your job.
Yeah, well, I sort of think that's probably for the best, isn't it, for a bit of stability.